At 17, Madison Skimitz thought her greatest pain was just a broken teenage romance. Little did she know that, for someone else, the word breakup would become the pretext for extreme obsession, hatred, and violence, and that the best decision of her life, leaving a toxic relationship, almost cost her everything. In just a few short minutes in a parking lot, Madison was stabbed 17 times. Her mother used her own body to shield her, while a stranger bravely rushed in to prevent the tragedy. Blood was spilled, screams rang out, and from that moment, the fates of many took a different turn. This is not just the story of a brutal attack. This is a journey from obsession to miracle, from despair to extraordinary willpower, and a chilling warning about the terrible price of ignored obsession. What happened on June 3, 2023, and how did a girl who was declared never to walk again manage to stand up, step by step, to the astonishment of the world? Madison Skimitz is an American teenager living in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. She attended Ponte Vedra High School, where she was known for being friendly and outgoing, with a bright future ahead. Like many of her peers, she also experienced the ups and downs of first love. In late 2022, Madison started dating Spencer Pearson. For 6 months, they were together like any other teenage couple. But by April 2023, Madison realized the relationship was unhealthy and decided to end it. She never imagined that this action would lead to a series of traumatic and violent events that nearly took everything from her. Spencer refused to accept the breakup. From April through early June, he began stalking and harassing Madison. He kept sending her harassing messages and even showed up at places she often went to. Those actions showed that he had no intention of letting her live her life in peace. The harassment escalated, causing Madison and her family to fear for her safety. This was no longer the impulsive reaction of a heartbroken teenager after a breakup, but rather disturbing and potentially dangerous behavior. Madison confided in friends about her fears, and her mother, Jacqueline Rogue, grew increasingly alarmed. In late April, Spencer's mental health deteriorated further. He posted a disturbing photo on Snapchat showing a tie around his neck and tears on his face. The picture terrified everyone. It could have been a plea for help, a manipulative act, or both. But it was certainly a sign of his mental instability. His family took him for evaluation, and he was hospitalized for 5 days with diagnoses of severe depression, social anxiety, and autism. Despite his parents' efforts, the hospitalization didn't resolve his obsession. After being released, Spencer's fixation on Madison only intensified. He continued to stalk her, his behavior becoming increasingly frightening. Madison tried to live normally, spending time with friends, going to school, and preparing for her senior year, but she couldn't shake her constant worry about what Spencer might do next. Sadly, that fear would soon prove justified. On June 3, 2023, Madison planned to meet her mother and friends for lunch at Mr. Chubby's Wings, a casual local restaurant. It was meant to be a simple, pleasant afternoon. Madison and her mom arrived, joined their friends, and for a while, everything felt normal. The atmosphere was relaxed, the food good, and laughter filled the table. About 30 minutes after the meal began, Madison noticed someone watching her from across the restaurant. It was Spencer Pearson. His appearance was no accident. Security cameras later showed that he approached near Madison's table soon after entering, ensuring she saw him. Even on video, Madison's fear was obvious. She and her mother exchanged anxious looks. They had talked before about this possibility. Their plan was clear: leave immediately, don't engage, and get to safety. Madison's friend Casey Estep recalled how Madison and her mother suddenly insisted they had to go right away. Their voices were urgent, their eyes panicked. They quickly asked for the bill, trying to leave the restaurant without attracting attention. Madison's heart was racing as they gathered their things, determined to avoid a confrontation. The plan was simple: get to the car and drive away. But Spencer had been watching them from a window. As soon as Madison and her mother, Jacqueline, stepped outside, he ran after them. What happened in that parking lot was an act of brutal, sudden violence, so shocking that witnesses could barely comprehend what they were seeing. Spencer attacked Madison from behind with a large folding knife his parents had given him. A knife engraved with his personal information. He forced her to the ground and began stabbing her with terrifying intensity. The assault was deliberate, brutal, and meant to kill. Spencer stabbed Madison 17 times, striking her neck, back, and torso. Each blow was aimed to end her life. Madison screamed as witnesses stood frozen in shock. Her mother, Jacqueline Roger, faced with every parent's worst nightmare, rushed in to protect her daughter. Jacqueline threw herself between Spencer and Madison, trying to pull him away. She hit, grabbed, and shielded her daughter with her own body. In response, Spencer turned the knife on Jacqueline, stabbing her in the forehead, hand, and leg. Despite her injuries and heavy bleeding, Jacqueline kept fighting. Determined to save Madison, they probably wouldn't have survived if Kennedy Armstrong, a 22-year-old restaurant manager, hadn't just driven into the parking lot at that moment. Hearing the shouts, Kennedy ran toward the chaos without hesitation. He tackled Spencer to the ground with full force, separating him from Madison and Jacqueline. But Spencer tried to rise again. Still holding the knife, Kennedy tackled him a second time, pinning his arms and preventing another attack. As Kennedy held Spencer and glanced at Madison and Casey, Spencer unexpectedly wounded himself. Those around quickly rushed forward, disarming him before he could inflict a fatal injury. The parking lot was covered in blood. Madison lay on the ground, gravely wounded from 17 stab wounds. Jacqueline was bleeding but conscious, her instinct to protect her daughter keeping her going. Armstrong suffered an injured hand from Spencer's knife damage that would later require several surgeries. Spencer, bleeding from his self-inflicted wounds, was finally subdued. Emergency crews arrived within minutes. Paramedics focused on Madison, whose injuries were catastrophic. One stab had pierced her spinal cord. As they worked to stabilize her, the grim truth became clear. Even if she survived, her life would never be the same. Madison was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Surgeons saved her life, but the spinal cord injury left her paralyzed from the chest down. The knife cut the nerve pathways between her brain and her lower body. For a teenage girl who had been active and independent only hours earlier, the diagnosis was devastating. Madison would never walk again. The activities she once loved, running, dancing, and simply moving freely, were no longer possible. Her senior year, once filled with plans for prom and college, would instead revolve around hospitals, rehabilitation, and learning to adapt to a new reality. Though doctors worked tirelessly to repair her physical wounds, the psychological trauma was immense. Madison had been betrayed by someone she once trusted, attacked without warning, and nearly killed in a public place under the bright light of day. Jacqueline eventually healed from her physical injuries, the stab wounds to her forehead, hand, and leg. But her emotional wounds ran much deeper. She had fought fiercely to protect her daughter, but couldn't prevent the devastating spinal injury. The guilt and the horrific memories of that day continue to haunt her. Kennedy had a long and difficult recovery ahead of him. Nerve damage in his hand forced him to undergo multiple surgeries and rehabilitation sessions. His courage and quick thinking had unquestionably saved Madison's life. If he hadn't tackled Spencer when he did, the attack might have been fatal. Even so, Kennedy was left with his own physical pain and emotional scars from those terrifying moments. As news of the attack spread, the community came together in support of Madison's family. A GoFundMe campaign helped cover the growing medical expenses, and friends organized vigils. The support was overwhelming, but it couldn't undo what had been done. Madison's life had been changed forever by senseless violence. Spencer survived his self-inflicted injuries and was arrested. He faced 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder and 1 count of aggravated battery causing serious bodily harm. The evidence was irrefutable, from surveillance cameras and witness testimony to the murder weapon itself. Yet for Madison's family, the legal process mattered less than the daily challenge of rebuilding their lives. Madison began months of intensive physical therapy, learning to use a wheelchair and adapting to a body that could no longer move as before. Each day brought new frustrations and heartbreak. Doctors confirmed what she understood but didn't want to believe. Paralysis was permanent, and no surgery could repair a severed spinal cord. She will have to rely on a wheelchair for the rest of her life, and will need help from others with basic daily activities. However, Madison was stronger than anyone imagined. Even she herself didn't realize it. Over the next 11 months, she defied every expectation. The teenager who had been told she would never walk again decided that wasn't going to be her story. She vowed to prove the doctors wrong. She would walk again. Before graduation, rehabilitation was grueling beyond imagination. Every day, Madison worked with therapists, pushing her body to the limit. The pain was unbearable, and progress came painfully slow, measured in tiny, almost invisible improvements. There were setbacks and moments of despair, times when recovery seemed impossible. Still, Madison never gave up. She found strength in her mother, who had put herself between her daughter and a knife. She drew inspiration from Kennedy, who had risked his life for a stranger, and she discovered within herself a deep well of resilience she hadn't known existed. Gradually, almost impossibly, Madison began to regain movement. It started small, a toe twitch, a faint muscle contraction. Her therapists worked tirelessly, stimulating muscles and retraining neural pathways to find new routes. Doctors watched her in awe. This wasn't supposed to happen. Severed spinal cords don't heal. Paralyzed teens don't walk again. But Madison was rewriting the rules. Month by month, her strength returned. First came small leg movements, then standing with support, then taking one step, then another. The wheelchair that had once seemed permanent became something she used less and less. Therapy sessions that used to leave her drained began to show real, measurable results. Her doctors called it remarkable. Her therapists called it extraordinary. Her family called it a miracle. Madison called it the hardest, most important thing she had ever done. At graduation in May 2024, less than a year after the attack that left Madison paralyzed, she walked onto the stage to receive her diploma at Ponte Vedra High School. She walked unaided, head held high, her smile radiant. The auditorium erupted in applause. Many people were moved to tears, deeply touched by Madison's strength and extraordinary determination. Her walk was not just a personal triumph, but a declaration that violence is not the end, and that the human spirit can overcome even the most devastating trauma. In each step, Madison embodied hope and strength, refusing to let her attacker dictate her future. While Madison focused on recovery, the criminal case progressed. In July 2024, just over a year after the attack, Spencer changed his plea from not guilty to guilty on all charges. At the November 2024 sentencing hearing, the courtroom was filled with family, friends, supporters, and media. Following Madison's inspiring recovery, Spencer's defense attorneys asked the judge for leniency, citing his youth, mental health struggles, lack of violent history, and conditions such as depression, anxiety, and autism. They argued he needed specialized treatment rather than a lifetime in prison. Judge Lee R. Smith acknowledged Spencer's mental health challenges and age, but emphasized that these factors could not excuse his actions. Then Madison addressed the court. She recounted the moment she realized she was paralyzed, the months of excruciating rehabilitation, and the daily pain that followed. She spoke of losing the ability to perform simple tasks and described her condition as a life sentence. Urging the judge to give Spencer the same, Madison's mother, Jacqueline Roget, described the terror of watching her daughter being attacked and the lasting trauma it caused. Nightmares, constant fear, and a life forever changed. Kennedy Armstrong, who intervened during the attack, spoke of his injuries, his decision to act, and his anger at watching Spencer destroy Madison's future. Because he couldn't accept a breakup, Spencer apologized, claiming deep remorse and acknowledging that June 3rd was the worst day of everyone's lives, including his own. But Judge Smith stated that remorse could not outweigh the severity and lasting harm of the crime. Some acts, he said, demand the harshest penalty. He noted that without Kennedy's bravery and Jacqueline's quick actions, Spencer would have succeeded in killing Madison, Judge Smith sentenced Spencer Pearson to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the judge announced the sentence, Spencer's family wept, while Madison's family embraced one another in relief. After 538 days, they finally felt that justice had been served. Soon after, Madison and Jacqueline filed a civil lawsuit seeking damages from Spencer, his parents, and Mr. Chubby's Wings restaurant. The lawsuit argued that Spencer's parents were aware of his mental health issues, but still allowed him access to the knife used in the attack. It also claimed the restaurant failed to provide proper security and did not contact the police after Madison and her mother warned staff that they were afraid of Spencer. The case highlighted how acts of violence often stem from a series of preventable failures that ultimately lead to tragedy. Today, Madison continues both her recovery and her advocacy work. Physical therapy is an ongoing process, and maintaining her mobility requires lifelong effort. The psychological scars will likely never fade completely. She still experiences nightmares, fear, and days when the emotional weight feels unbearable. Yet, there are also moments of joy, achievement, and hope. Madison's story has touched the hearts of countless people who are inspired by her refusal to let what happened define them. She demonstrates that surviving, recovering, and thriving are distinct but all possible. Even after immense trauma, Madison now advocates for victims of domestic violence and stalking, using her platform to raise awareness about warning signs and the importance of taking threats seriously. On social media, Madison documents her ongoing journey, not for attention, but to encourage others facing their own struggles. Her posts reveal the hard work of therapy, moments of progress, setbacks, and ultimately, a life being fully lived, rather than merely endured. Spencer Pearson will have to spend the rest of his life in prison. His obsession has utterly destroyed his own future. Just as he attempted to destroy Madison's, his case stands as a severe reminder of the dangers of untreated mental health crises. Meanwhile, Kennedy Armstrong and Jacqueline Roget received the Carnegie Medal, one of North America's highest honors for civilian heroism, for their split-second, selfless actions that saved Madison's life. Madison herself is perhaps the least impressed by her achievements, seeing her recovery simply as doing what was necessary. But to those who know her story, she represents something profound, proof that the human spirit can endure and rise above even the darkest attempts to destroy it. She walked when doctors said she never would. She smiled when despair seemed inevitable. Under the bright moonlight on a paradise island, thousands gathered on the beach to dance and celebrate the full moon. Unbeknownst to them, just a few hundred meters away, a horrific crime was silently unfolding. There were no gunshots, no cries for help. Only a man vanished, and his dismembered body parts, hidden in garbage bags, were scattered across the beautiful island of Koh Phangan. The victim was Edwin Arrieta Arteaga, a successful, wealthy, and respected plastic surgeon from Colombia. The last person seen with him was Daniel Sancho Bronchalo, the son of a famous Spanish film star. A private vacation, a secret relationship, and a seemingly romantic encounter culminated in one of the most gruesome crimes ever involving a foreigner in Thailand. What really happened in that luxurious bungalow? Was it an accidental death, a moment of impulsive panic, or a cold-blooded murder plot when love, money, lies, and fear are exposed? The line between victim and perpetrator becomes increasingly blurred. Edwin Arrieta Arteaga was born in Santa Cruz de Lorica, northern Colombia. He grew up in a well-off family and received devoted care from his parents. His father worked as a radio and television repair technician, while his mother, a retired teacher, was highly respected in their community. Although his parents lived separately, his mother often visited until her sudden death at age 44. Since childhood, Edwin had dreamed of going abroad to study and build a career in surgery. He dedicated himself to his university studies to earn a medical degree. After years of hard work, Edwin moved to Monteria and quickly became a renowned plastic surgeon. Over his more than 10-year career, he performed hundreds of surgeries and became a top choice for many patients. He was also admitted to the Colombian Society of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, a globally prestigious organization with over 35,000 members. Thanks to his active presence on social media, he gradually gained fame not only domestically but also internationally. In December 2022, Edwin began chatting with Daniel Sancho Bronchello, a young man from Madrid nearly 20 years younger than him. Daniel Sancho Bronchello was born on June 11, 1994, the son of well-known Spanish actors Rodolfo Sancho and Silvia Bronchello. His parents met while studying acting and had Daniel when they were just 19 and 18 years old. They remained together for a little over a decade before separating amicably. Daniel grew up with his father in a comfortable environment, accustomed to media attention. Outgoing and athletic, he enjoyed sports such as tennis and surfing. Despite his family's ties to the entertainment industry, he chose to pursue a career in gastronomy and hospitality, working for the upscale catering company LAM. Daniel was passionate about his work, but it never brought him the financial success he wanted. He earned only a small portion of what his family members made. Thanks to inherited wealth, Daniel adopted a lavish lifestyle, spending freely on luxury dining, private flights, and high-end travel. He frequently showcased his life on social media, highlighting his love of food, surfing, and global adventures. Despite his efforts, Daniel gained little public attention. His social media accounts attracted few followers, and his YouTube channel, with its polished videos and costly cooking gear, never reached 1,000 subscribers. Even though he came from a well-known family, he remained only modestly popular. Daniel, an attractive Spaniard with long, sun-bleached hair and a fit physique, quickly developed a connection with Edwin. Their exchanges grew more frequent, evolving from friendly conversations into a romantic relationship. They began sharing intimate photos and messages, and Edwin became emotionally invested. Edwin also sent Daniel large sums of money, in some months more than 20,000 euros, to support Daniel's personal projects and provided him with additional credit cards for unrestricted use. Daniel and Edwin's relationship spanned approximately a year, during which Daniel maintained a concurrent long-standing relationship with a Spanish woman for 5 years. With plans for future matrimony, Edwin was completely unaware of this relationship or that he was unintentionally competing with her. Though they kept their relationship private, Edwin started planning a future with Daniel. He envisioned opening 2 clinics in Spain, one in Barcelona and another in Madrid, and living together there before possibly moving to London or another major city. A seasoned traveler with ample savings, Edwin often took trips abroad and found it easy to explore the world. Eventually, Daniel invited Edwin on a private vacation to Thailand, hoping to spend time together away from public attention. They chose to meet there from July 31 to August 3, 2023, planning their trip around the famous full moon party on August 1. They reunited on the island of Koh Phangan, where Daniel suggested they enjoy the celebration and relax together. Edwin arrived on the island on Tuesday, August 1st, for a planned vacation with Daniel. When his family stopped hearing from him after his arrival on Koh Phangan Island, they grew anxious. Edwin usually stayed in regular contact while traveling, so his silence was alarming. Knowing about Edwin's relationship with Daniel, Edwin's sister messaged Daniel on social media to ask about her missing brother. Daniel also expressed his concern, saying he had planned to meet Edwin on August 1st, but they hadn't been able to. Edwin's sister urged Daniel to report her brother missing to the police. Daniel reluctantly agreed, saying he would do so after taking a shower. Eventually, he followed through. But when he arrived at the police station, officers noticed scratches and cuts on his face and hands. On August 3, 2023, the island woke to what seemed like an ordinary day. The night before, residents and tourists had celebrated another full moon. Some people were enjoying their morning coffee, others were nursing hangovers, and a few were taking in the fresh morning air. At around 12:30 p.m. local time, a sanitation worker making his usual rounds at the local landfill noticed something strange. Inside a fertilizer sack, he found wet, decomposing material that at first looked like animal remains. But when he looked closer, he was horrified to discover human body parts. Further examination revealed that the sack contained a human pelvis and internal organs. Police officers arriving at the scene concluded that the remains probably did not belong to a local resident, as the body parts were unusually large. This discovery set off a grim investigation. Other residents soon began finding more fertilizer and garbage bags scattered across the island, each containing different parts of the same body. In total, 14 bags were recovered across a wide area. At first, authorities weren't sure if the remains came from one person or several, but they suspected the victim was a tourist. Local officials quickly issued a public warning. A deeper search of the landfill turned up another bag containing legs and some clothing. Based on the level of decomposition, investigators estimated that the killing had occurred about 36 hours earlier. DNA testing confirmed the victim was Edwin Arrieta Artiega. However, the cause of death, the circumstances of the case, and the reason the body was dismembered and scattered around the island remain unclear. Given that dismembered body parts had recently been found across the island, Daniel's condition raised suspicions. The police detained him and searched his bungalow. At first, the bungalow appeared clean and well kept. But further examination by forensic experts revealed grim evidence. The drains were clogged with human hair and what appeared to be tissue, particularly fatty tissue. DNA test results quickly confirmed the worst suspicions, revealing a horrific crime had occurred there. Authorities began preparing a thorough investigation to uncover the full story in that seemingly luxurious house. While some officers continued searching the bungalow, others questioned Daniel at the station. He initially denied involvement in Edwin's disappearance and claimed he hadn't arrived on Koh Phangan Island until August 2nd. That claim was quickly disproved by surveillance footage and hotel records, confirming his actual check-in date. Faced with undeniable evidence, Daniel changed his story. He described the start of their vacation as happy and peaceful. After riding a scooter from the airport, they enjoyed meals, deep conversations, and discussions about their future together. As night fell and festivities began across the island's beaches, clubs, and hotels, the couple decided to stay in. Despite the island's lively atmosphere, a heated argument broke out between them that night. The quarrel ruined what had begun as a promising trip. At 29, Daniel felt trapped in the relationship, burdened by financial stress and the emotional control of the 44-year-old Edwin. Daniel claimed that Edwin became aggressive in seeking physical affection, pushing him toward unwanted intimacy. Tensions between Daniel and Edwin escalated, eventually leading to a violent fight. During the fight, Daniel hit Edwin in the face and forced him into the bathroom, where Edwin struck his head, lost consciousness, and appeared dead, panic-stricken. Daniel tried to revive him by pouring water over his body, but when that didn't work, Daniel realized that the man had died from the fall. In a shocking sequence of events, Daniel then stabbed Edwin twice in the chest and slit his throat. He dismembered Edwin's body into 14 parts with 2 knives and a saw. Scattering the remains around the island, he disposed of Edwin's belongings, including his phone, but kept $9,000 in cash. Daniel later led police to the different places where he had hidden the body parts, all of which he had disposed of within a single day of Edwin's arrival. Some remains were thrown into the sea. Receipts and staff accounts showed Daniel visited a kayak rental shop around 9:00 p.m., appearing nervous and agitated. When he could not rent a kayak at that hour, he offered $11,000 from Edwin's funds to buy a boat, and the staff eventually agreed. After obtaining the kayak, Daniel took Edwin's suitcase, filled with personal belongings and body parts, and paddled out into the bay. He threw everything into the sea before returning to shore, where he met 2 women and joined them at a full moon party. He acted carefree, dancing and celebrating as if nothing had happened, likely to create an alibi. When he returned to his bungalow, he went to sleep, indifferent to the fact that parts of Edwin's body were still nearby. Despite the horrific events, Daniel slept soundly. The next morning, he woke early and scattered more bags containing body parts around the island. He left the villa early Thursday, just before locals found the first bag. When questioned by authorities about his relationship with Edwin, Daniel admitted to the murder but denied any romantic involvement. He claimed Edwin had misled him with false promises of business investment and had actually wanted a romantic relationship. Investigators were puzzled that the two men had shared a single room if no romantic connection existed. Coming from a family of actors, Daniel may have seen an opportunity to use his dramatic skills. He explained that he had wanted to end his relationship with Edwin but felt trapped by threats of blackmail and scandal. Daniel said their trip to Thailand was meant for him to break things off. Although Edwin saw it as a lover's holiday, Daniel claimed he was heterosexual and engaged to a woman in Spain, a piece of news that reportedly angered Edwin and sparked the argument that led to Edwin's death. The true cause of Edwin's death remains unclear, whether it was the blow to his head or the stabbing. If Daniel had not used the knife, Edwin might have survived. However, pressure to protect his reputation, avoid scandal regarding his sexuality, and concerns about his engagement may have driven Daniel to extreme action. Despite Daniel's claim that the killing was impulsive, investigators found evidence of planning. Security footage from the day before Edwin's arrival showed Daniel buying knives, latex gloves, plastic bags, and cleaning products, all later used to clean the crime scene. Divers ultimately recovered Edwin's head and hands from the bay, along with his clothing, boxer briefs and a black t-shirt, packed inside a suitcase. On August 15, 2023, the police chief announced that the investigation into Daniel's case had concluded. The motive for the murder was determined to be Daniel's desire to remove Edwin from his life so he could marry his fiancée without revealing hidden aspects of his past. Daniel also wanted to hide parts of his personal life and keep the financial support Edwin had been providing for his business. To resolve both issues, he devised a drastic plan that ended in tragedy. The evidence gathered was strong enough to charge Daniel with first-degree murder, a crime in Thailand that carries the death penalty by lethal injection. Although executions are not carried out immediately, convicted individuals may appeal, usually delaying the sentence by only 2 to 3 years. This crime became one of the most infamous cases involving foreigners in Thailand's history. When Daniel's parents learned about the situation, his father, Rodolfo, quickly flew to Thailand with well-known lawyer Marcos Garcia Montes. Despite his reputation, Montes was not legally permitted to represent Daniel in Thailand, so local lawyer Kunan Anand was appointed to handle the case. However, disagreements between Montes and Kunan over legal strategy led Kunan to withdraw. Daniel's family was therefore in a desperate situation, forced to find another Thai lawyer amidst a complex and challenging legal landscape. Thai authorities stated that Daniel would be charged with intentional homicide and with concealing the body to hide the cause of death. His family remains hopeful that the defense team will do everything possible to save his life, though the case appears extremely difficult given the strong forensic evidence, witness testimonies, video recordings, and Daniel's own confession. Both the defense and the prosecution are preparing their arguments. Officials monitor Daniel's mental and emotional health closely, aware of his stress and fragile psychological state. They emphasize that he must face justice in court rather than avoid it through self-harm. On August 29, 2024, a Thai court found Daniel Sancho Bronchello guilty of premeditated murder. He was initially sentenced to death, but due to his cooperation during the investigation, the sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. Additionally, he was ordered to pay 4 million baht, about $130,000, in compensation to Edwin's family. The shocking case has drawn intense attention and debate in Colombia, Spain, and Thailand. Public opinion remains deeply divided. In Colombia, Edwin's colleagues, patients, friends, and relatives remember him as an excellent surgeon and a kind person. They reject Daniel's depiction of Edwin as a manipulative blackmailer, calling it an attempt to excuse his crime. Conversely, some sympathize with Daniel, suggesting that he was intimidated by Edwin, leading to his violent behavior. It all started with a single comment on Instagram. At just 15 years old, Anna Makunova was shy, creative, and dreamed of becoming a makeup artist. What began as innocent attention and young love soon turned dangerous, hidden behind charm and confidence. As the relationship continued, control replaced care. Realizing the danger, Katrina sought help. Over 5 months, she contacted the police multiple times, warning them that her boyfriend's behavior was getting worse and that she feared for her safety. Each call was a warning sign. Each report was a chance to act. But those opportunities were missed. In July 2018, determined to take back control of her life, Katrina agreed to meet him one last time to end the relationship. She entered that building believing she would finally be free. Instead, it marked the start of a tragedy that revealed a painful failure to protect a vulnerable teenager. This is the story of a young girl who tried to save herself, and a system that did not listen until it was too late. Katrina Makunova first met Oluwaseyi Dada, also known as Capone, in 2016 when she was just 15 years old. She was a shy but artistically gifted girl, born in London to a family of Czech descent. She loved makeup and dreamed of pursuing a career in it. Her brother, Julius, later recounted that she was always full of creative energy, frequently sketching and perfecting her artwork. That same year, an Instagram comment changed Katrina's life. Oluwaseyi Dada, 19 years old, is confident, charming, and has a cool demeanor that makes her captivating. He made Katrina feel noticed and special. They started talking, dating, and for a while, their relationship seemed like a typical teenage romance, until things deteriorated in 2018. By the time Katrina turned 17, Oluwaseyi's behavior had become darker and more controlling. She discovered he had a criminal past, including banned substance-related offenses, and his temper frightened her. Her brother saw her becoming withdrawn and uncharacteristically quiet, while friends noticed bruises and scratches she tried to hide. Oluwaseyi became increasingly controlling and possessive. He constantly questioned her about where she was going and who she was meeting, leaving her almost unable to escape his grip. In desperation, Katrina sought help, hoping someone would intervene before things spiraled out of control. From February to June 2018, she called the police multiple times, pleading for protection from her abusive boyfriend, Oluwaseyi. Over those 5 months, she reported at least 5 separate incidents, each one a warning sign that her situation was becoming more dangerous. In February, Katrina told police that Oluwaseyi had threatened her with a knife during an argument at his flat in Camberwell. He held the blade near her chest and ordered her to stop speaking to other people. Though her statement was recorded, the police took no further action, no arrest or follow-up. In March, Katrina called again, reporting that Oluwaseyi had grabbed her arm so hard it left bruises. He accused her of being disrespectful, turning even minor disagreements into excuses for violence. She told police she felt trapped and that his behavior was escalating, but officers failed to conduct a risk assessment, an essential step in protecting victims of domestic abuse. By April, matters had worsened. Oluwaseyi tracked her down at a friend's house, yelling threats and banging on the door. Katrina reported the incident, but police treated it as isolated rather than part of a pattern of abuse. In May, she endured further humiliation when Oluwaseyi threw a drink on her in public. She again told police she feared being alone with him because of his violent temper. Her final call came on June 26, 2018, after another public incident where Oluwaseyi poured a drink over her. Despite repeated reports, officers still failed to recognize the escalating danger she faced. The police never fully examined Oluwaseyi's criminal background, his connections to banned substances and gangs, or his reputation under the nickname Capone. They also failed to identify him as a repeat offender or a serious threat. The Metropolitan Police's Child Protection Unit, overwhelmed with cases, failed to act on Katrina's repeated pleas for help. When Katrina made her last call, she was nearly desperate. Her family noticed her growing fear, how she anxiously checked her phone and avoided certain streets in Camberwell. Though she tried to free herself from her abuser, the system meant to protect her tragically let her down. Just weeks later, Katrina's decision to meet Oluwase one last time led to a heartbreaking tragedy. On July 11, 2018, at age 17, she bravely told her family she would end her relationship with Oluwase. After months of being controlled, living in anger and fear, she was determined to reclaim control of her life. That day, Katrina went to Oluwase's apartment building on Brisbane Street in Camberwell, South London. The next day, July 12th, tragedy struck. Inside the building, events quickly turned chaotic. Katrina and Oluwase met in a shared area, and their conversation soon became heated. Witnesses reported hearing loud shouting echoing through the hallways before the argument turned violent. Katrina had a 19.5 centimeters kitchen knife in her bag, likely for self-defense. There was no evidence that she had ever threatened or harmed anyone before. During the struggle, Katrina either stumbled or was pushed. In the fall, the knife pierced through her bag and fatally struck her in the chest. Oluwase immediately tried to help, pressing the wound with his hand and calling for help. Although the police and medical personnel arrived very quickly, the injury was too severe, and Katrina did not survive. Oluwase was arrested on suspicion of murder as police launched their investigation. Forensic evidence confirmed the knife had come from Katrina's bag, and witnesses agreed the fight was mutual. There was no indication that Oluwase possessed or used the weapon. Investigators concluded that Katrina had brought the knife for protection, but never intended any harm. Her death was ruled a tragic accident. Although Oluwase was implicated, there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with murder. Ultimately, he was charged with manslaughter, meaning he was held responsible for her death, but not for intentionally causing it. As the case progressed, Katrina's family was left heartbroken and angry, believing her death could have been prevented. Attention soon turned to the system that had failed her. Katrina's death not only shattered her family but also revealed serious flaws in the institutions meant to keep her safe. Between February and June 2018, she had contacted the Metropolitan Police 5 times to report threats and abuse. Yet her pleas for help were repeatedly ignored. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, launched an investigation into how her case had been handled. The IOPC uncovered multiple missed opportunities and procedural failures. Police officers had not followed even the most basic procedures. Her reports of domestic abuse should have triggered an immediate risk assessment. But those critical safety checks were either done poorly or not at all. 12 officers were investigated. By September 2022, Sophie Dennis and Carrie Linham were required to attend disciplinary hearings. Sophie admitted falsifying a report after one of Katrina's complaints, pretending she had followed up when she had not. Later, when Oluwase publicly poured a drink over Katrina on June 26, Sophie again failed to complete the required risk assessment. Carrie Linham, who handled another of Katrina's reports, admitted she had not escalated the case as she should have. Both officers received formal disciplinary actions, but for Katrina's family, these measures came far too late to make a difference. A year later, in September 2021, the South London Court of Death announced the results of its investigation, sharply criticizing a series of police failures in protecting Katrina. Investigator Andrew Harris concluded that Katrina's death was an unlawful homicide, emphasizing that the police's delayed and ineffective response exacerbated the tragedy. He pointed out that officers knew about Oluwase's violent past but failed to act, leaving Katrina at increasing risk. The Metropolitan Police later issued a public apology, admitting their shortcomings and pledging to improve officer training and their handling of domestic abuse cases. As part of their reforms, they introduced a pilot program to create specialized teams dedicated to responding to domestic violence incidents. Meanwhile, in January 2019, attention turned to Oluwase. On January 9th, he appeared before Southern Crown Court and pleaded guilty to manslaughter for his role in the July 12, 2018, death of 17-year-old Katrina Makunova. The defense argued that it was a violent argument, followed by a struggle, causing Katrina to accidentally fall onto the knife she was carrying in her purse. They argued that Oluwase had no intent to harm anyone, and DNA evidence confirmed the knife belonged to Katrina. Because there was no evidence proving that he used a weapon, the case fell into a legal gray area. There was no intent to kill, yet a life was still taken. On January 29, 2019, Judge Nicholas Lorraine Smith sentenced Oluwaseyi Dada to 2 years and 3 months in prison. Katrina's family was devastated by the verdict. Her brother, Julius, called it a cruel injustice. Only 2 years in prison for the death of a young girl. He told the press that the family felt the verdict was too lenient and did not reflect the severity of the crime. The judge explained that the sentence followed legal guidelines for manslaughter, not murder, emphasizing that Katrina had brought the knife and that the fatal injury was likely accidental during the struggle. MP Harriet Harman, representing Katrina's family, sent a letter to Justice Secretary Robert Buckland, arguing that the sentence was too lenient. In March 2019, Katrina's family formally appealed, hoping for a tougher penalty. However, Buckland reviewed the case and upheld the verdict, stating that the sentence met the legal standards for unintentional manslaughter. He expressed sympathy for the family's grief, but said the evidence provided no grounds for a longer sentence. Sadly, Oluwaseyi's violent behavior continued after his release. In 2020, he finished his prison term, but on May 20, 2022, he attacked a woman named Lisa Kubilos in Hounslow, West London. He grabbed Lisa by the neck and hit her in the face with a bunch of motorcycle keys, causing a deep cut above her eye. On July 8, 2022, the Kingston Royal Court sentenced Oluwaseyi to 2 years and 3 months in prison and a 10-year ban from contacting Lisa. His recidivism reveals a disturbing pattern of repeated violence. Sophie met Martin Kavanagh in 2008 at a bar in Elmer's End, Bromley. She was 24, vibrant, and full of life. Martin, then 28 years old, was very charming, and the two quickly developed feelings for each other. By 2011, they were married and living in southeast London, appearing to have an ideal life together. Sophie loved being a mother. She devoted all her love and care to her children. However, her marriage to Martin gradually began to crumble. Martin became increasingly controlling, jealous, hot-tempered, and possessive over time. By December 2016, Sophie had had enough. She ended the marriage but remained in contact with Martin for the sake of their children. They continued to meet for family outings, but Martin struggled to accept the separation. When Sophie started dating again, he became threatening and obsessive, sending menacing messages to people she knew and even writing notes to her, claiming he wanted to be with her one last time. Her sister noticed Sophie seemed increasingly exhausted and emotionally drained, believing Martin's behavior was wearing her down. On May 19, 2018, Sophie and Martin spent the day together on what appeared to be a normal family outing. They took their 2 children to Wingham Wildlife Park in Kent, then met friends at the Chatterton Arms in Bromley Common around 5:30 p.m. The atmosphere outside seems friendly, but in fact, it is still full of tension. That night, phone data showed Sophie was still online after midnight. Meanwhile, Martin's obsession intensified. He offered Sophie £100 for one last night together, but she firmly refused. That evening, Sophie went to Martin's apartment on Chatterton Road, which he had only rented for 2 months. She didn't live there, and her mother, Dawn Larkin, later said she had no idea Sophie intended to visit him. Investigators determined that Martin had sent Sophie numerous angry messages, accusing her of infidelity and making things worse. His jealousy and obsession had spiraled out of control. Between late Saturday night and the early hours of Sunday, May 20, Martin's fixation turned violent. In a burst of jealousy and control, he strangled Sophie. The court could not determine whether it happened suddenly or after a struggle, but the result was the same. Sophie lost her life. She was found in the bedroom, her body covered with a blanket. After the killing, Martin left the flat. Around 8:10 a.m., he dropped their children off at his mother's home in Beckenham, telling her to watch them for a few hours. Witnesses said he acted agitated and shouted. After dropping off the children, he left without saying a word. At 6:13 p.m. that evening, police were called to the Chatterton Road flat after reports of a woman found dead. Officers discovered Sophie's body in the bedroom, covered by a duvet. Her broken phone lay in the trash can, next to a pair of scissors, a sign that someone had tried to destroy it. The scene was disturbingly quiet. The officers discovered that Martin had written a message on the children's whiteboard, saying that Sophie deserved what had happened. He believed that now he and his little daughter could be together forever, sharing the love and happiness he thought they deserved. The message revealed a disturbing mix of delusion, anger, and twisted justification. A post-mortem, conducted on May 22, confirmed that Sophie died from neck compression. She had been strangled. Detective Chief Inspector Richard Vandenberg, from the Metropolitan Police's Homicide and Major Crime Command, launched a full murder investigation. Although her death was initially considered unexplained, growing evidence soon uncovered the tragic reality. Sophie's ex-husband, Martin Cavanagh, was quickly identified as the main suspect. After dropping off their children, he disappeared, leading police to issue a public appeal on May 23 to find him. Authorities warned the public not to approach Martin, noting his connections to the Southeast, London and South Coast areas, particularly Peyton. Police seized Martin's Audi for forensic analysis, and neighbors confirmed he had lived in the flat for only about 2 months. A neighbor described Martin as a quiet person and said that they only exchanged brief greetings when they met. On May 24, Martin turned himself in at Bromley Police Station. When arrested, he was carrying Sophie's bank card and had a fresh wound on his wrist, possibly from an attempt to flee. Investigators worked to understand what had happened, haunted by the message he had written on a whiteboard, a disturbing insight into the emotions that led to Sophie's murder. Her death raised painful questions about whether more could have been done to protect her. In many domestic abuse cases, victims repeatedly seek help, but Sophie never contacted the police about Martin's behavior. Her loved ones, however, knew he could be manipulative, especially after their separation in 2016. Sophie's half-sister testified before the Old Bailey court that Martin frequently sent harassing text messages to men Sophie was planning to date, making her life suffocating whenever she tried to start a new relationship. Martin's jealousy and need for control were clear warning signs, but they never came to the attention of authorities. His trial began at the Old Bailey in November 2018. 6 months after Sophie's death, the jury took just 4 hours to find him guilty of murder. On December 7th, prosecutors presented key evidence: the whiteboard message, Sophie's broken phone, and the autopsy, showing she had been strangled. Prosecutor Alexandra Healy also cited Martin's text messages, accusing Sophie of seeing other men, portraying him as possessive and consumed by jealousy. Martin claimed self-defense, saying Sophie had hit him after they used cocaine, and that he briefly grabbed her by the neck. The jury rejected his account. Sophie's family wept as the guilty verdict was read. Martin Cavanagh was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 16 years. On December 10th, the judge said Martin's crime came from his need to control, calling the whiteboard message a chilling reflection of his mindset. Sophie's mother spoke through tears about her daughter's love for her children, describing her as an angel taken too soon. The verdict left the family heartbroken, but brought a small sense of closure. Sophie Cavanagh's story stands as a painful reminder of how love, when poisoned by obsession and control, can lead to devastating tragedy.